Not to sound overly dramatic, but things are a little bit more complicated than they might seem when it comes to accusations of AI with artists. Let me explain. So, the last video I made here on the channel is talking about the fact that there are some pretty serious allegations going around for the Feast for Crows Illustrated Edition, where people believe with quite a bit of evidence that the art they've been handed was generated by AI. There's so many red flags, like a crucifix being on a wall and a lack of sigils, things along those lines, that in my opinion, it seems like a pretty safe bet that it was at least used in part of the process. And that's where things get a little bit tricky. I don't know exactly what happened in these situations. There's another YouTuber named Red Team Reviews who's actually apparently doing a whole lot more deep dive into this, and I'll be in touch with them, and definitely go check out their channel. Also, I'll try to provide any additional information when it comes out here. But please understand that we don't even know if it was used entirely for the process or possibly even just part of it. And that's the difficulty. AI in art is something that can be used to just tweak things here and there, or of course, entirely generate a new image. And there are some people who have a problem with only the latter. Some don't like even the former. I fall more into that camp. But it's a tricky conversation. And this epidemic of artificial intelligence being used in art has also caused a lot of artists to face false allegations of using AI, which is terrible. And there's also this gray space where, of course, there are people who use digital tools out there that, if they're used in certain ways, can reflect some of the, quote, identifiers that AI is known for: overly smooth skin, things along those lines. And this actually brought me to a conversation that happened in my Discord, where recently here on the channel, we released a Red Rising summary of the first book. Darrow tries to quietly tell Cassius, like, hey man, I think we're gonna get ambushed. And Cassius is like, maybe we can steal their shit too.
Okay, yeah, that's just...
Darrow's like, you're a crazy bastard. I kind of like your energy though. And so they just sprint mad dash. And I showcased these Russian covers in there. And then I jump into my Discord a few days later and someone's talking about how that's pretty obviously AI. And then they list some reasons I very much so disagree with. And I'm not going to include the name of the artist who is now being alleged to have used AI. And I actually regret using the artist's name in my coverage of it in my last video, because again, I don't know if they used it on their own, if they provided something to Penguin Random House that Penguin then used AI with. It's very difficult to know for sure. But this artist, who's just working on Russian editions of Red Rising, as far as I can tell, has no use of AI in their catalog. I checked out their ArtStation, the tools they list, interviews they've been a part of, even the publisher that these were put through, none of which say they would like to use AI. And the publisher's website explicitly says that they hire artists to create art. And of course, there could be some wiggle room in there that we actually do use AI in some capacity, but no. Now, the user in my Discord, though, did make some points that if you stretch and squint, I guess you could say are indicators possibly of AI. They say in the first cover there are the knees or lack of knees, really, but I disagree there. There's knees on everybody except for people standing straight. When you stand straight, especially with pants on, not a whole lot of knee definition there. The hand on the guy wielding the daggers, yeah, it looks a little bit different from the face. But if you look at the style the artist uses, they blend and they merge artifacts to create their works. And so if you have two things that might be slightly different coming together to make these merges, that could result in a slight, although I think this is exaggerating the difference here, but incongruity. The palindrome and pretty much that whole arm, I just disagree. Hair on the forehead of the top left dude, it looks completely fine to me. For cover 2, there's artifacts in the belt, gadgets, and armor, which once again, when you're blending artifacts or creating things digitally on their own, you can end up with things that kind of look like AI style. The whole dude in the background is rendered entirely different from the rest of the characters. There's a big problem here. These are supposed to be golds in the cover who are supposed to be built to be absolutely perfect to the point of like borderline uncanny valley, and the person in the back is an obsidian who is supposed to not look like that. And again, with a digital style, this incongruity, I don't blame this Discord user, can raise some red flags. Though, from what they're saying in their comment, I don't think they've read the series, so they're approaching it from an angle of not understanding that to begin with. That's kind of clear from a few people talking about this, because one of them mentioned like an incongruity in the armor, when the armor between the Red Rising books does change for spoiler reasons. The background woman's whole dress, that's too vague for me to even know what they're referring to. The flying combat spaceships, this is just like saying things. And then the facial proportions of the main guy, Again, I think they're fine, and they're actually pretty consistent with the first and second rendering of them. Now, when I looked at these Russian covers, I want to fully admit, I had a moment of going, oh, that does look a little artificial. But I looked into the artist's style, and after doing some digging into what might have been their inspiration, I actually just think they were inspired by Boris Vallejo's overly perfect people style, which, if you want to talk about bodies that occasionally have some things that seem odd, Boris Vallejo, even though he was creating things in the 80s, 90s, and around that era, is, yeah, creating stuff that would not look real. And then if you take the concept of Red Rising and add in these overly perfect golds clashing with people who are not supposed to look as perfect, maybe sprinkle in like a Star Wars twist to it, and the end result is, in my opinion, a very clear through line between like a Boris Vallejo inspiration and what was done for Red Rising here. Sci-fi classic, inspiring a new cover for a modern sci-fi series. Why am I talking about this so much? Because it can ruin careers. If an artist gets labeled, put next to AI, and then people forever in the algorithm are looking them up and searching and seeing these accusations next to them, it could stop a publisher from working with them. It can cause damage on a massive scale to someone who potentially did nothing wrong. Because once again, art can get handed off. And then once other people in the process are changing the art outside of that artist's control with AI, that's not their fault in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I'm sure that artist would be very upset by that. But then if you add on top of that, this going back through the history of art that we've been using in the last couple of years while AI has been rising and trying to make accusations, if that looks like AI, you just don't know. It's so dangerous. And so I wish the end of this segment could be pointing towards a solution or a path forward, but that's the scary situation we're in right now. Granted, my last video, I'm still pretty confident in that. I didn't notice this till the comments pointed out. Cersei doesn't have a leg here. There's a missing whole leg, and you could say the way they're positioned with their first leg, yeah, if their second leg is a baby leg, by chance. There are obviously going to be instances that are more clear than others. I just caution people, and I know this is going to be frustrating in the day and age of the internet where, saying negative things or trying to be a naysayer is more popular, gets you more clicks. Be excruciatingly careful before you accuse someone of using AI in their art. It's why in my first video, I said allegedly a whole bunch. I also made it clear, finding the artist, that I don't think that aligns with their original style, and made the point that Penguin Random House has said that they are not entirely against artificial intelligence. So I want to put the blame there by default. Now, if it does turn out that I had an AI cover used in one of my videos and I just couldn't catch it, that sucks, and I wish I could just splice that out without destroying the video because they're on screen for quite some time. But mainly to you all, I hope this little bit of reflection can showcase why anytime AI is sniffed out anywhere, people get so upset because we don't know to blame the artist, the publisher, what, and it often does result in terrible executions of things that people are being asked to pay money for, or for example, you get someone whose arm doesn't connect with their shoulder, or there's a lack of detail that in previous volumes of a special edition you would get to clearly indicate a scene, a moment, a character, a ship that you just don't get with AI right now. And I hate that last part, because maybe it will be good enough one day that we won't be able to tell it all. And then the burden almost even comes on the artist to come forward and say, hey, that's not what I was paid for, or they paid me a little bit for only a blip, and then so much more was done. It sucks. It just sucks. Fortunately, as I get older, the more I genuinely believe there is always something you can do. But almost never is it yell at an individual artist, even if they are, unfortunately, using AI. Because if that's how they're making their bag, good luck changing their mind, especially in a character-limited tweet or something along those lines. Instead, if you want to affect change, customers, consumers responding en masse negatively to AI being used to make money in publishing can set trends and make it so that they learn a lesson that it will actually affect their wallets negatively to depend on such a crappy tool. The technology will get better and AI art is going to get more difficult to detect, which is why I recommend you follow artists you like. There's a reason I follow Tom Roberts, an absolutely brilliant artist I adore on Instagram, because if he ever gets screwed by a company, they ever use AI art in a way on his work that he does not like, I want to be aware of it. I want to be able to see what happened to him, then not support the people who did that to him. Yeah, we follow models and singers and all this stuff on social media. Why not the people who create these beautiful cover arts that you have some of your favorite stories within, right? Sometimes you could even see an upcoming cover before it's even publicly released following them. I feel a little bit like I'm punching a brick wall like I did with the Audible situation, but I just refuse to shut up and be quiet and give up. I always want to push people to support artists on a more personal level, really follow the ones you adore, and if they use their platform to complain, listen. Check out maybe if they're publishing a contract, which more and more artists and authors are doing, what exactly is being set there and why, and what they're upset about within it. We, as fantasy fans, have a long, and I am quite proud of, history of telling scummy people acting in this space to fuck right off, all the way back to the illegally published editions of Lord of the Rings, right? And I just don't think we should let that part of this community ever die. These companies keep getting stronger, but networking betwixt all of us keeps getting easier. And to be clear, I looked as deeply as I could into the artists who did these Russian editions, and all I found was someone who's been winning awards for making book covers since 2014, I believe. And well, I certainly don't think these Russian Red Rising editions are their best work. There's not anywhere near enough evidence for me to throw the cursed AI label towards them. It's just someone who has a hell of a career, and it would be a damn shame if they got somehow negatively affected because maybe they just didn't put out their top quality work. Mistakes and errors within art do not inherently mean AI right away. So the plot keeps getting thicker. We officially got a response here on the George R. R. Martin blog to the discussion around whether or not the Feast for Crows Illustrated Edition was made with AI. And this is actually strangely posted to George R. R. Martin's not a blog, except it's not from him. And instead we have a statement from, my name is Rhea Golden, and I manage the art direction and license and development here at Fevre River, working closely with George R. R. Martin as his schedule will allow. But wait, working as closely, whatever. But I alone am responsible for approving all the licensed art that accompanies our Song of Ice and Fire book-driven materials. Recently, there have been accusations floating around that the Penguin Random House's illustrated edition of A Feast for Crows was produced using AI generative art. To our knowledge, and as presented by the artist who completed the work in question, there was no such programming used. Strange phrasing. Well, he is a digital multimedia artist and relies on digital programming to complete his work. He has expressed unequivocally that no AI was used, and we believe him. So, the official word from our side is, of course, that we do not willingly work with AI generative artists in any way, shape, or form. Specific phrasing there. This message has been brought to you by the minions of Fevre River. Current mood? Angry. It's an interesting mood choice there as well. So I actually had a screenshot sent to me from Rhea Golden here's LinkedIn, publicly available, from Red Team Reviews, that shows they've been working, apparently, as an art director for George R. R. Martin, specifically full-time, for over 14 years. So, okay. First, I want to just go ahead and respond with, I personally don't believe that no AI was used in this material due to the number of strange elements that exist, like a single leg on Cersei, the crucifix in the background, or the fact that this necklace here just disappears into a neck. I don't know if it was from what the artist handed in, something done on the publisher's side, etc. But this statement does not make the situation look better because of, on top of the, let's just call it, poorly received art itself, there were just flat out wrong aspects to characters in terms of weapons used, hair, crowns. And so if you are saying that you see all of this and you are the director, what was the process here? You have over a decade of experience. Was there revisions or drafts? Because an interesting thing that was also brought to my attention was that this artist is a big fan of Game of Thrones. I say that specifically, not A Song of Ice and Fire, and many of the elements that we're seeing gotten wrong are things that were either not featured as heavily in Game of Thrones or not as emphasized, and so it just begs the question of what the hell is the quality control going on here? And it's just a bad look, man. And we're in the day and age where there's mess ups that just get so messy that it becomes nearly impossible to even pin down a point of exactly what went wrong where and why. And I'm afraid this is the kind of thing that's going to ripple out to larger distrust in the industry. My God, I'm done talking about this issue. Blah! But thank you so much for putting up with this cold open. Let's go ahead and get into your 8th to last episode of Fantasy News. Of this format, I'm going to keep covering the news. I want to make that clear here. The Fantasy News already be flowing. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host, Daniel Greene, and today, let's go ahead and shift over from that annoying conversation into a happier one. And that is because we have seen a saw shark named after a Chainsaw Man character. How apt. And that would be the Pichitacera pitrikikanalale, a saw shark named after Pochita, the adorable chainsaw-nosed, pug-inspired puppy from the Chainsaw Man series. Now, the discovery of teeth from an unknown saw shark in Chile's Bahia Inglesa region resulted in this naming of honoring the Chainsaw Man character and the Chilean paleontologist Dr. Patricia Canales. And I will take this opportunity to let you all know I did in fact see the new Chainsaw Man movie, Reze, and it was fine. I think people are overhyping it quite a bit. I enjoyed the animation style most of all. It was an absolutely gorgeous film, but the gratuitous explosion bomb action sequences towards the latter half of the film way overstayed their welcome and killed a lot of the momentum for me. I think personally, Chainsaw Man, for its preferred medium, is going to stick to manga. I think that's just where I'm going to be consuming that story going forward. Though the voice acting, the humor, a lot of it did land. Cringe elements just highlight a little bit stronger in an actual movie, and you can ignore them, at least in my head, a bit easier by just flipping a page. So, I don't know. That was my opinion on it. I'd rate it a solid 6.5 out of 10.
I might need you to move, unless, we can make this work. That's fine. You want to review it with me? You want to do a reaction type content with Papa? Just don't leave during the middle of the shoot, right? Because then we have incongruities. So, I was asked to reveal the new Bobiverse covers to the Goblin Horde for the next book that's getting those, and I have not looked at them yet. So we're going to do a raw reaction. Do I have them? Okay, cool. Here, tap to download. And now I shall do my fresh, genuine reaction to revealing the cover of Heaven's River by Dennis E. Taylor to you, Twixt the Goblin Horde. I'm actually most interested to see how they've continued doing all the bobs on the spine, because I know they've done like the straightforward, they've done kind of a spirally thing. How are they doing it for this one? Okay, first of all, I like this cube. It's a good cube. If you know, you know. And the bob is kind of doing, it's kind of doing like here we go. Oh, it's a staggered bob. I like that. For some reason, it makes me think bloop, bloop. Oh, do you want to get involved, Mako? If I get both cats, this is officially the best filming I've ever done. Mako? I don't want to have to pick you up because Pips will freak out and leave. But you got to get up here if you're going to get up here. I'm just going to leave you be. All right, now let's just take a look at the cover here. Damn! Okay, the sense of scope on this ring is pretty killer. Very Halo. I like. Oh, we got both cats! I'm so happy. Oh, we even know the price tag here. It's going to be $30 per hardback for these. This has nothing to do with Bobiverse, but goddamn hardbacks are getting expensive. And the Bob vessels, just phallic enough. Okay, Mako, he didn't like them. Mako gave them a negative review, but Pips is here. This was my first real look at the inside of Heaven's River. I stopped and gawked like a tourist. So for those of you who don't know, Bobiverse is the story of someone whose intelligence is put in a satellite and hurled into space, and they began cloning themselves, hence Bobiverse. And I'm digging. I like the color. Wait, what were the colors of the last one? I think they've kind of like a blue to a green here, which I like. And, ooh, again, I think these interior papers might actually be my favorite part of these, like, painted style they're doing. Oh, look at the little waddly butt. Yep, I'm a fan. I'm going to rate these ones. I think I'm feeling about the same as the 7. I'm going to go a solid 7 out of 10. It feels like they're coming to a point or it's going to start getting difficult to do the bob on the spine in a fun, original way. But I like that they're going whoop for these. Next time, maybe it's a whoop. You know exactly what I'm talking about for the design there. And also, I think, haven't they increased the number of ships on each cover? I didn't know they were upping the amount of ships to follow the amount, like which one you're in the book. That actually makes it cooler. I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. I dig. Thank you.
And do you remember how FlexiSpot gave me this really comfy chair?
Well, they saw I was in need of a new editing desk, and they stepped in. Check this out. Wait. It's actually pretty fast. I thought the joke was going to be that I stand here for too long, but it's actually standing at a very nice rate. That's a good rate of rise.
That's what she said.
My last standing desk had some serious wobble to it that this one does not. It also had a strange thing where after I would raise it like 30 seconds to 5 minutes after, in between that frame, a weird sliding and clunk noise would happen. This one, no slide and clunk, just stability. This bad boy here is the E7 Pro and has helped my back exponentially because my last desk never actually went to the right height I needed. Well, as this one, you could be Shaquille O'Neal and end up using this thing. My wires are pulling tight down below. This is nipple height. See all these saved like functionality, so it just goes back to where I want it. Beautiful. And this guy will handle a heavy load, as you can tell by me just on it with my monitors, everything. Sturdy boy. That's a sturdy E7 Pro. And my favorite part is it doesn't take up too much more space in my room, but compared to my last desk, it's about a foot deeper, which makes me just feel like I have so much more space to operate. I feel like a professional. And with a 15-year warranty and 30-day return period, you know they stand by their product. So whether you're looking for a gaming studio, a workspace, or just want to have a desk in the side of your room that whenever you're frustrated, you could raise and lower because for some reason that releases tension for you, you weirdo, I highly recommend you check out the FlexiSpot E7 Pro. So to check this one out or any of FlexiSpot's amazing products, just click the link in the description down below. Leave a note at checkout saying Daniel Greene and use code Daniel for $30 off your first purchase. And also, don't miss out on their upcoming Black Friday sale where there's going to be up to 80% off select products. God damn! And there's a chance you could even win a 100% free order. Big thank you to FlexiSpot for supporting today's video. Now, back to that video. Speaking of flipping pages though, let's get into the book news of the week. And that's going to start off with Orbit revealing a cover to us for Nightshade and Oak by Molly O'Neill. An Iron Age goddess must grapple with becoming human in this delightful historical fantasy of myth and magic from the author of Green Teeth. And this is set to be released February of 2026 and has art credited by Leo Nichols. I've read a few books recently about the existential dread of immortality and facing down forever. And so the idea of a tale going in the other direction, where someone who was a god becoming immortal, that's pretty cool. Perks my interest. And that cover, just the symmetry of it, I like it. The way the hair even flows, like kind of making a circle swirl, a little swirl. It's good. Good job. And then from Reactor Mag, we had a cover reveal and announcement for Isabel J. Kim's Sublimation. Doppelgangers, corporate intrigue, heartbreak, betrayal, and the harsh permanence of the border. Sublimation, a thrilling and provocative debut for fans of Severance that asks what you'd sacrifice for a different life from award-winning author Isabel J. Kim. This is giving me Pantheon vibes with the uploaded intelligence, except now doppelganger. I just love that kind of stuff, especially adding in a corporate element. By the way, if you're a fan of Severance and you're okay with animation, watch Pantheon. Similar vibes in such an insane way, if not a little bit more high concept sci-fi. Brilliant. And this one seems to slot into that like whole genre that I've realized as I get older I'm a big fan of, which is like corporate dystopian sci-fi stuff. I don't know why, but I guess the more and more we actually slip into that world, it's fun to look at narratives that explore it. Also really like the cover. Simple, but that like effect. Nice. But then we have some Sanderson news that's hitting us to answer a question for non-Sanderson fans of where to start, because apparently Brandon Sanderson is going to be putting together his own run of the entry points for Sanderson. These are done in a paper illustrated style, and yeah, the 3 picks of Tress and the Emerald Sea, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and Mistborn are all very good entry points to Sanderson, and I guess we can take this as his official recommendations of where to start. The credited artists are here on screen, and of these 3 personally, I actually like the Mistborn one the most. I think that one slaps, and I like the way it's kind of using that fold over aesthetic to achieve some depth. Mwah, well done. That was not how you do a kid. Mwah is how I went mwah. But stepping on out of the book news in huge, exciting news for the Percy Jackson fans out there. Season 2 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians has dropped its trailer. And holy God, it's already gotten over 15 million views. What the shit? That is insane. This series is way more popular on the streamings than I thought it would be. And it seems to be dropping on both Hulu and Disney Plus for those interested. Although with how that's heading in the future, I guess that's a given. This will premiere with 2 new episodes dropping December 10th, with new episodes rolling out every Wednesday. Percy Jackson has had this like great pace of coming out for its seasons, and it seems like it was just announced or released in a blink, at least to my time doesn't matter anymore perspective. But in the exact opposite camp, in the whole other end of the spectrum, we've gotten another update for the upcoming Mass Effect series that is being worked on. And that's that apparently it's not going to retread the original trilogy, and instead is going to continue events after the games, which, okay, let's get into the full quote here first. We've been partnering closely with Amazon on the series, and we're really excited with what the talented team over there is coming up with. The writer's room is going strong, and we've got a lot figured out about how it fits in within the Mass Effect canon and where it sits in respect to the new game. The show will explore a brand new story within the universe's timeline and will be set after the original story. It won't be a retread of Commander Shepard's story because, after all, that's your story, isn't it? Put your pitchforks down and hear me out. I just want to say something. It's really popular in the modern era of adaptation to say not being loyal to source material is a net negative. And I agree to an extent, but this isn't by its very nature disloyal to the source material. And instead, this is from someone who's in charge of the franchise saying, we just have another story to tell and we're moving forward. And with what the original Mass Effect trilogy story is, don't get me wrong, I think it could work as a series, but it also would inevitably disappoint some people who prefer certain decisions, want the more renegade versus, Shepard. This, instead, allows them to take a very well fleshed out world built and decide to tell a new story that may fit this medium better. Remember, I always try to be positive on this stuff. I want to give benefits of the doubt. And so I'm not all against this, right? Like, I enjoyed the new Frankenstein movie, despite it being taking some pretty substantial creative liberties from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I'm annoyed that there is no totally loyal adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein out there as far as I'm concerned, but that doesn't mean it's a bad telling of Frankenstein. That is it being disloyal to source material. We're not even facing that problem. This is on the other end, where it's this story we don't think would fit this medium or fits the vision we're going forward with, and perhaps narrative things that have been huge roadblocks from going forward, or part of why the Mass Effect adaptation has taken so long to get done. And so just wiping a clean plate, taking what was built from there and pushing forward with probably the most positive ending from the games could be a lot more free creatively. That's what I'll leave it at. I'm very willing to be proven wrong here, and this could be a total dumpster fire. It is Amazon. They've had a shoddy record, but I'm not counting them out yet, especially when they're setting expectations properly this far out from its release. I would way prefer this than whatever the fuck happened with Halo. And then from The Hollywood Reporter, it has been released that apparently Spielberg and Chris Columbus are going to be reuniting for Gremlins 3. And everything's case by case, and this one, Gremlins belongs in the 80s and 90s, man. The Gremlins is such a product of the time it was created during that this does feel weird. I will at least say I'm excited to see if they are going to continue with brilliant practical effects, how that could look with how the craft has evolved in the decades since these movies originally came out. But there's also a part of me that's just, oh God, that tonally, conceptually, do the Gremlins hold up today? I think they're a wonderful look into the past. Do they have the gas in the tank to be a blockbuster now? Only time will tell. And in a very similar vein, we have also had the news drop that The Mummy is going to be getting another sequel with both Rachel Weisz and Brendan Fraser returning, with Tyler Gillett and Matt Bettinelli set to direct. Does this feel like it might be a little tiny tidbit leaning into the, Brendan Fraser's super popular now, so let's try and recapture lightning in a bottle? Perhaps. Am I still interested to see Weiss and Fraser bring that electric chemistry back to the screen?
No, not really, no.
And then, in the final news of this episode of Fantasy News, it looks like Funko Pop is going to be going out of business in 2026, with some extraordinarily bad numbers happening for the little tiny plastic garbage sales. This includes the fact that apparently they're facing a net loss of $41 million, or 74 cents per share, with a net income of only $5.4 million, or 0.10 cents per share. And I just have to say, what an amazing gift the universe to give me as Fantasy News closes down. That, I didn't believe in God necessarily until this moment. But after all these years of hard work, to finally be let know that the universe is listening, it means a lot. In all seriousness, terrible for the people who are employed by this company. I do hope them the best, but am I thrilled by the idea that eventually people can stop handing me Funko Pops at conventions or sending them to me if I ever set up a P.O. box again? Yeah. But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and I do have an update for the future of this show if you're curious. I've had 2 different hosts behind the scenes try and take over, do a test story here or there. One of them just told me way too much work, I can't commit to this, which understandable. That's why I'm struggling to an extent. And then the other, again, just said scheduling, it's more than I thought I'd commit to, and I think that's absolutely fine. I think what's going to just end up happening is I'm going to end the Fantasy News show as is and come back with Fantasy News 2.0 for a marketing gimmick of what I want the show to become in 2026 with how many episodes we have left. That actually lines up by accident very, very well. So look forward to Fantasy News reinvented in the new year, and have a good one, y'all. Peace.